Hello friends, it's Pam here. I'm back in the little sweet kitchen and it's a pouring rain day today. It's a bit chilly in here and I'm loving it because I've been so hot. It's been so humid. Anyway, today I am supposed to be packing, getting ready for a little holiday that we're taking. And so I thought I would just try and motivate myself to get ready and go out into the world and get the things I need by getting ready to make a video, because I don't know if you've ever had a comment maybe on whatever social media you use or YouTube that has gotten a lot of likes and it kind of surprised you and you're thinking like, why is everybody liking this comment? What is going on here? So this happened to me yesterday. So I thought maybe I would call this video something about a comment or a revealing comment or something like that. There's a writer that I follow on Substack, and I'm not on Substack a lot, but I follow a writer called Coffee with Keats. And he is a poet and a writer. And I found out he's also still a student. He's in his, I think maybe mid to late 20s, and has been working his way through school. So he had put up a post about how hard it is to be creative after work. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've been writing stuff like that too, about how, some of the barriers to being creative. And he has really excellent, really thoughtful writing. He's definitely going to go places. Anyway, so I'm looking down at my notes because I did actually write a couple things down for this one. So all last night and today, I keep getting these notifications that somebody else has liked this comment. And I haven't turned them off because I'm not used to getting Substack notifications. So, it's not really a bother, but I keep getting these notifications. So what was the comment that people keep liking for some reason? Well, he was discussing how brutally tired he was. He didn't use those words, but just how exhausted he is. I think he's in Britain, maybe Oxford, Cambridge, one of those type of schools. I'm not quite sure. I could look into it, but it doesn't matter, right? And just lamenting how long the days are, and how, because he has to work his way through school and he has class and work, and then he's trying to meet these writing deadlines, and he doesn't really have time, to sleep. He's exhausted, doesn't have time to plan dates or, really have a social life, right? So, I was thinking about it, and I wrote him a comment back. And I just reminisced a bit about my 20s and remembering being in this brain psychology class and being so tired that I just could not focus on what the prof was talking about. I was just feeling so heavy and exhausted. And I remember writing a poem, something like These Heavy Molecules or something, and drawing the picture. And I don't know where that thing went. Hopefully I can find it one day. And, talked about how in my 50s, like being 50 now, there are also these constant decisions that I'm making about where my time and energy goes. And it feels like there's not time for important things sometimes still. And, what is important, right? So, anyway, every decision I make with my time or energy cuts off something else, and time seems like it's right there. It's very close. And so you're trying to kind of seize the day. And then I gave him a little advice. I just said, kind of like a mother or an older sister or something. I said to make those relationships a priority, to plan the date, to eat good food, to prioritize sleep and rest, because an exhausted soul can't enjoy anything. We can't enjoy the fruits of our labor. life just becomes one survival after another, one meaningless task after another. And even the things that we say give us joy and meaning, like for him, it might be writing or his classes, they start to lose all of their joy, all of their meaning and purpose because of just this feeling of total exhaustion. And I said to care for himself as he would a beloved friend. And that's advice I've given before and heard before from people that has given me pause. Like, why would I not give myself the rest, the sleep, the help, the space that I would give to a friend, right? And why can't we see ourselves that way and care for ourselves that way? I think it's, the most loving thing we can do in a lot of ways for others. If we're constantly giving from this depleted, miserable self, then eventually there's nothing left, right, in the cup. So anyway, it wasn't a long comment. It was just, and it wasn't really the comment so much that was revealing. It was the number of likes. Like, why does this comment resonate with so many people? It hasn't really happened before. And I thought, well, maybe so many people are feeling this bone-weary exhaustion that I've been feeling too. And I think in 2025, we're struggling to find a meaning in this fast-paced life. And every generation, I think, has their struggle to find meaning. I think in some of the older generations, they found meaning in a greater cause, right? Or in just working really hard to achieve something, to provide for their family, to pay off their mortgage. That was like a big deal. They had, these mortgage burnings, and I think that's a great idea. It's definitely not as achievable these days. And for the next generation, it's almost completely out of reach. So, what are they working for? What are they going to school for? For young people that are just going out into the world, there is a great deal of disillusionment, I think. And trying to hold on to, if I go to school here, or if I get this job, at least I can, get to the next step. But what is the next step? It seems like the steps are almost disappearing, right? People are going through school and training for jobs, and then finding out that it's AI is taking over that whole field, right? So I just think it's tough for a lot of people, but especially for those 20-somethings that are trying to make their way in the world right now. And just looking back at my notes here, obviously, this up-and-coming generation is watching their parents struggling, treading water, often exhausted, and still unable to pay off a mortgage. And not everyone's in different financial situation, but I do think in general, people are really struggling. They're treading water. They're just trying to make the next payment. They're trying to, survive into the next week. And so young people growing up and seeing this, I think, I don't want to grow up and be as exhausted as my dad looks. I don't want to not have any time for a holiday. I don't want to not have time, like this Coffee with Keats guy, to set up a date, or, even just have a good night's sleep. What is left for them? I'm afraid, I think, for my son, and I think one reason this is resonating with me so much is that my son is getting ready to go soon to college, to post-secondary, and I have so many fears for him, so many worries, because I burnt out really badly when I was in school, just because of the relentless pace, not understanding my own self and how I worked and how I needed boundaries and how I couldn't constantly be socializing. I needed, to recharge and to stop taking on too many things. And I've talked about that in a few videos. But I think the hardest thing to recover from sometimes is hope. When we have put our hope somewhere and the hope is dashed or disappointed, it's very hard to pick yourself up again and, back into the fray. And that's the human experience, that we all have to do that. We all have to face those dashed hopes. In the midst of all the noise and frantic pace, maybe being reminded to take time for relationships, to take care of oneself, is an act of hope, is an act of hopefulness. And maybe that's why that comment was resonating with people, because they are all trying to beat back the gloom, or looking for someone to say it's okay to take care of yourself, it's okay to take time, right? I told him in the comment, there will be time for everything. But if you are completely exhausted and depleted, all of these things that you're hoping for will lose their shine, right? And I think my comment also speaks to maybe young people crying out for mentors, somebody to guide them, someone to show them the way, to say, I have been up that trail, it is very steep, and if you see a bench along the way that you can rest on, do it. And just kind of saying, you can do this, right? That encouragement. And I feel like a lot of times, instead of that helping along and encouraging, there's just this suspicion, misunderstanding, and frustration, right, with younger generations. And I think, as a teacher in high schools, I definitely was really surprised with how young people were so happy to be encouraged and how far it went, just the smallest compliment or the smallest encouragement. So, yeah, an exhausted soul cannot enjoy anything, not the fruit of their labor, not their loved ones, not thoughts of the future. There becomes only now, surviving this moment so you can get to the next. And so, yeah, I was thinking, do I have anyone else that I could encourage? Sometimes we're afraid of the younger generations, to reach out to them, to ask them how they're doing, and the opportunity passes, the window closes, and we never said what we wanted to say. So I hope I can say what I need to say, and yeah, I hope we can all kind of guide some of these young people along. And I hope that the Coffee with Keats guy is somewhere right now in maybe the town of Cambridge, sitting in a pub eating fish and chips with a friend that he's been trying to get to know. I hope they have a nice coffee afterwards, maybe go for a walk across the bridge, and for those few hours that he can just feel what it's like to be a young man alive in the world, and let some of those deadlines and burdens just go for a moment. As I think we're burdening our young people from such a young age that they're losing their childhood, they're losing their teenage years, their 20s, they're kind of losing hope, right? What is it all for? I pray that he never has to recover from having hope and losing it, at least not in any major life-altering way. And yeah, I have hope for my son too. I think what's exhausting me maybe is just the worry that his hopes might be dashed again. And that's not all my burden to bear, that's his. But I hope he can care for himself as he would a friend that he cares about, because man, he is such a good friend to others. So yeah, thanks for listening. This was a little bit longer than I expected. So if you stayed to the end, thanks for hanging in there. And if you have any thoughts about this, or if you've had a comment that kind of blew up that you were surprised about, yeah, feel free to leave a comment or just hit that like, and I'll see you again really soon.